Hello, right, let's get into it. Starmer's already on his feet. He's just answering the usual question about
later today.
Having further sus meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Later today,
this
right.
Labour government has been in power now for almost 12 months. So when will the Prime Minister stop defying the will of the British people, stop dancing around the subject,
cocking.
and stop
When will the Prime Minister
into the United Kingdom?
When will the Prime Minister do the immigration? His watch. Very well, I shall release Wadwick. Straight in there. Nick and Diff, I've just done 2 hours of streaming this morning already. I had to have some breakfast. Give me a break. You missed the bit where he listed his things in the day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the economy is showing signs of improving, many pensioners are still impacted by the cost of living crisis. People in Luton who have worked hard all their lives, seeing their precious savings slip away.
When are you going
Can
to
the
stop
Prime Minister
immigration?
Tell us what measures he will take to help struggling pensioners in towns like mine?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, we all know the economy was left in an absolute mess by the Tories.
Yes.
We had to stabilise the economy with tough decisions,
Will
but
of the
right
people.
decisions.
The will of the people.
Because of those decisions, the economy is beginning to improve. Those growth figures
Will of the wispy
last year,
people.
the highest growth in the
Okay, Nick and
G7,
Diff.
interest rate cuts, 4 in a row, 3 trade deals. But I recognise that people are still feeling the pressure of the cost of living crisis, including pensioners. And as the economy improves, we want to make sure people feel those improvements in their days as their lives go forward. That is why we want to ensure that as we go forward, more pensioners are eligible for winter fuel payments. As you would expect, Mr. Speaker, we will only make decisions we can afford. That is why we will look at that as part of a fiscal event.
Ooh, so they're bringing back the winter fuel payments. Oh my God, bit of a U-turn there.
It's extraordinary listening to that last answer from the Prime Minister. Inflation was 2% when Conservatives left office.
It had got up to 11%.
It's now nearly double that.
It had got up to 11%.
When will you recognise that it's Labour's budget driving up inflation?
Oh my giddy aunt.
I think what she forgot to say was over 11% on their watch.
I just said it. I just said it.
I am confident those
God,
numbers
I could do his
will
job.
come down, Mr.
Could
Speaker.
totally do this
the
job.
Bank of England is confident those numbers will come down. That's why we've seen 4 interest rates in a row. But I notice she can't resist grabbing any opportunity to talk the country down. She doesn't mention the growth figures, the interest rate figures, record investment, wages up more than prices, 200,000 jobs created, 4 trade deals. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, they haven't learned, they haven't changed, and as George Osborne said, she doesn't have a credible economic plan.
Mr. Speaker, this is laughable from the Prime Minister.
Laughable.
He knows that inflation was brought down by us to 2%, bang on target. We were reacting to a war in Ukraine that brought inflation up all over Europe. While he is doing trade deals with countries like the US and India, their inflation is going down. It's going up here. Why? The ONS says the inflation figures are driven by significant increases in household bills. We warned him repeatedly that this is exactly what would happen, what his policies would do.
This is very rich.
The Prime
This
Minister
is
came
very
into office
rich coming from you.
saying that he would tackle
from your
the cost
party.
of living crisis. He has failed. He hasn't got a clue, has he?
Mr. Speaker, she talks of their record, the disastrous Liz Truss mini-budget. Inflation through the work. They left a £22 billion
Hey, 22 billion! Woo!
Energy prices through the roof, mortgages through the roof. And Mr. Speaker, we're taking measures to bring prices down. That EU deal will bring prices down. That's why supermarkets welcomed it. What did she do? She opposes measures to bring prices down.
Mr. Speaker, he needs to stop whining about what the last government did and look at what he is doing.
He's had to stop whining about what the last government did.
Look at the numbers this morning. As if inflation figures weren't bad enough. We've
Let's
also
not hold you
learned
to
that
account.
The Deputy Prime Minister is on manoeuvres. He's lost control of the economy. He's lost control of his cabinet. She's sitting there staring at me. She knew exactly what she was doing when she briefed that into the papers. She is demanding, Mr. Speaker, 8 new tax rises, as if we haven't suffered enough. People out there are struggling. Businesses are struggling. People are losing their jobs.
Because of 14 years of Tory government.
We cannot have more tax rises. Will the Prime Minister rule out new tax rises this year?
The way she asks questions is
Mr.
so
Speaker,
shit.
She's not learned or changed. They lost the election because their appalling record on the NHS, on health, on prisons, you name it. And now she accuses everyone of whining about the impact that had on the country. It had a huge impact on working people across the country, and they're absolutely right to complain about it. She wants
Working
to talk
people.
about the Deputy Prime Minister.
They work so hard.
Chancellor, building 1.5 million new homes, reforming our planning system, putting £7 billion into our economy, and bringing forward our employment rights bill, which is the single biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation.
Kemi Badenoch.
That's desperate stuff. The whole House would have heard the Prime Minister refuse to rule out new tax rises. The whole House heard it. He didn't rule it out. That his cabinet is open warfare. The Deputy Prime Minister clearly calling the shots.
Open warfare.
What is it that we've learned? We're heading for new tax rises.
Bollocks.
We know inflation is up. It's just more and more bad news from a Prime Minister who has lost control. So we heard his earlier answer, Mr. Speaker. We heard his earlier answer on winter fuel. Let's try and get some more information. I'm going to ask him a simple question. It only requires one word, yes or no. Is he planning to U-turn on winter fuel cuts?
Yeah. Yes. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I made clear in my earlier answer that as the economy improves, we want to take measures that will impact on people's lives.
Got a lot of the
and
bingos
therefore we
card
will
in
look
this
at
morning.
the threshold, but that will have to be part of a fiscal event. But, Mr. Speaker, they lost control of every element of the economy, of prisons, the borders, the NHS, you name it. And now she's lost control of her party. They are sliding.
In fourth place.
Into oblivion. They will have to trade on their past, Mr. Speaker, because that's all they've got.
And their past is pretty
I
grim.
made it really easy for the Prime Minister. Just a simple question, yes or no. And he could not
So snarky.
answer. I wonder how the public feel about a man who can't give a straight answer to a simple question. And you look at all of them behind him, all of them cheering, when this inevitable U-turn on winter fuel comes, and it will, from a desperate Prime Minister, what will he say to the 348 MPs who went over the top and voted for the winter fuel cut last September? Just like the British public, how can any of them ever trust him again?
Mr. Speaker, it's only because of the measures we've taken that the economy is improving. Growth at the highest
mention
rates
14 years.
in the G7.
Come on, I want to get a line on my bingo card.
Cuts. 3 trade deals because countries want to trade with this country because of the decisions that we've made. All of those decisions opposed by the party opposite. They've learned absolutely nothing and they're going absolutely nowhere.
Mr. Speaker, this is a Prime Minister.
Ask a question.
Who says he's taking measures.
No, you're making a statement.
Ask us. Killing jobs.
Ask us question.
Is up.
Ask
Business
a question.
Confidence is down. Everyone
it's PMQs.
Is he promised to cut bills, but today we see
not
they
opposition
are rising
statements.
because of his
Ask
policies.
a question.
He promised not to raise taxes.
Ask
on
a question.
People, but his jobs tax means people are losing
Oh,
their
she's
jobs.
so bad at
Every
this.
Week we come here with a new company that is saying they are shedding
Ask
jobs.
a
That's
question.
on his watch. He promised to protect pensioners, but his winter fuel cut has
Ask a
driven
question.
thousands into hardship.
Oh, God.
His MPs hate this. He can't see them, but they all look sick just hearing what it is he's going to do.
Oh, my Lord.
So let's wait until... Oh, yes, they're laughing. They're laughing. They're laughing.
Are you going to ask a question anytime today? Come on, cup of tea.
I expect better from
tea.
whips.
Come
And boys on at the back, I've got my eye on you. Kemi Badenoch.
Oh, man, he never tells anyone to go for a cup of tea anymore.
Order. Sorry. Which one wants to leave first? If I hear it, there we are. They've got the first volunteer.
Oh.
Are you going to behave?
Cup of tea. Cup of tea. Oh, he didn't tell him to go for
Mr.
a cup
Speaker,
of
they are
tea.
laughing just as they laughed at the budget. Hands up who here wanted
at the
winter
budget.
fuel cuts. Hands up. Not a single one of them.
It's not how it
a
works.
single one of them. The fact of the matter is, this Prime Minister is destroying them. They need to look
making
at what they are
statements.
doing
You're
to the
supposed to be asking
country.
questions.
The truth is, we all know
Can you ask
that
a
it's
question?
this Prime Minister, this Labour government, and their policy
God.
that are shafting the country, isn't it?
Was that the question? Isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, they look in pretty good form to me, and there's lots of them. Mr. Speaker, she talks about business confidence. Yesterday, I didn't have time to read out the list of all the businesses that have come out in support of our EU deal. Mr. Speaker, I don't have time today. It's a long list. I went immediately to Lidl and spoke to the staff in Lidl. They're delighted with the deal we put forward yesterday. Business like the work we're doing. It's giving them confidence in the EU deal. She's opposed to each and every measure.
So that was a non-answer to a non-question.
Mr. Speaker, I recently visited Barrow Hill Primary School in my constituency of North East Derbyshire, a school in receipt of a new free breakfast club. The team there are doing a fantastic job, but challenges still remain. What more can we do as a government to support both them and local parents to give the children of Barrow Hill the start in life that they deserve?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and we are united by a shared focus on creating better life chances for our children. And I'm delighted to hear her constituents are already benefiting. Thanks to our plan for change, we'll deliver free breakfast clubs in every primary school in England. And I'm determined to support parents to give every child the best start in life. And that's why we're rolling out free childcare, expanding the first 300 school-based nurseries and delivering more family hubs.
From Adam and the Ants. Right, a sensible question.
I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks about the terrible fire in Bicester last Thursday. I know from my honourable friend, the member for Bicester and Woodstock, how deeply the close-knit community there has been affected by this tragedy. And firefighters Martin Sadler and Jenny Logan were true heroes, as was Dave Chester. And I hope the full prayers and thoughts of the House are with their loved ones and with the 2 firefighters still in hospital. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has rightly said that his new trade deals will give a much-needed boost to economic growth and thus to the public finances.
Yes.
So will the Prime Minister make sure that struggling families and pensioners see the benefits of the growth? He teased the House with his first answer to his honourable friend, the member for Luton North. So will he commit now to reversing his cuts to the winter fuel payment in full?
Mr. Speaker, firstly, can I just thank him for his comments about the Bicester tragedy. And it's very important that in a moment like this, the House does come together. And we are taking measures, obviously, to help with the cost of living crisis. And that's why the EU deal yesterday was so important, because the impact it will have on prices, particularly in supermarkets,
he asked
directly
specifically about winter
those
fuel.
who are affected by the cost of living crisis. Mr. Speaker, what I said before was this, that the economy is beginning to improve. People are still feeling the pressure. That's why we're taking the measures that we are. That's why we're striking the trade deals that we are striking. As that improves, I do want people to feel the benefit of the measures that we are taking. And that is why I want to ensure that more pensioners are eligible for winter fuel. It is important that, as you'd expect, that we are clear we can afford the decisions we're making, and that's why it will now be looked at a fiscal event.
David.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, so he hasn't said yes, definitely, but he hasn't said no either in that response. But can you just take a moment to contrast the way that Ed Davey asked the same question there that Kemi Badenoch asked? But Kemi Badenoch, because she has to grandstand like a lunatic, she has to say, "Oh, isn't this a U-turn? Isn't this a U-turn?" Whereas he stood up and said, "Can we just clarify what you meant by saying that you would, look at the winter fuel allowance again?" And that's the difference between grown-up politics and Punch and Judy shite that we get from the Conservatives and we get from Refuck.
I think I welcome what the Prime Minister has said, but we will look at the details. And I hope he will use some of these new proceeds to help others like carers, because the government's changes to PIP will have big consequences for family carers, like Ginny, who cares for her husband Tim, who has myotonic dystrophy. Ginny holds her husband's hand to keep him steady as he walks. He falls frequently and chokes on his food. Ginny is the sole earner in the family. She works part-time on top of caring for Tim. But she's calculated that under the government's cuts, her family will lose £12 £1,000 a year. So can the Prime Minister tell Ginny and many family carers like her, what does he expect them to do?
Mr. Speaker, we have approached this on the basis of the principles that we must support those who need support. On the question of getting people into work, that we should support people into work where they can work, and of course, where they could work, they should. But it is undeniably the case that the current arrangements don't work and need to be reformed. And that's why we're bringing forward reform, necessary reform, to ensure the system works better.
Annalise Mitchell.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday in this place I read the victim impact statement Cheryl Corbell never got to say to her daughter's killer, Thomas Cashman, because he refused to face her in court. I made up Olivia's law past second reading, but until it gets royal assent, criminals can still not show up and deny victims justice. So will the Prime Minister commit to making sure Olivia's law becomes law as fast as possible?
Yeah. Please say yes.
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for reading that victim impact statement? Because I know from talking to Cheryl just how hard it was for her to make that victim impact statement in the first place. It took a huge amount of courage and grief. And she wanted to read that statement to the perpetrator, as she should have been able to do. And I know how visceral the pain is to her of not being able to have done so from the meetings I've had with her. So I do thank my honourable friend for allowing that victim impact statement to be heard by the whole world, by being read out in this chamber. Cowards who commit these heinous crimes should face the consequences of their action, and face those that have had huge impact on their lives. And that's why we will force offenders to attend the sentencing hearings with longer sentences, unlimited fines and prison sanctions for those who seek to avoid facing justice. And I again pay tribute to Cheryl, who I will meet later on this afternoon, for having the incredible courage to push for that change, notwithstanding the incredibly painful impact it's had on her and her family.
Jim Allison.
Really good stuff.
The government assures us that Northern Ireland is still in the United Kingdom's customs union. If so, how is it then that British steel can be sold to the United States tariff-free, but if the same British steel is sold into Northern Ireland, it's subject to EU tariffs? Why on Monday did the Prime Minister not even try to take back control over the trade laws that govern Northern Ireland?
Piss off.
Mr. Speaker, it is important that we reduce tariffs on steel into the US market or other markets, including the EU markets, for obvious reasons. It is also vital that we seek to ensure that we reduce any barriers in trade within the United Kingdom as a whole. Yesterday was a step towards that. There's further work to do, but we do want to get to that place where we can trade without those barriers in the United Kingdom. We'll continue to work on that.
Andrew Pex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will know that thriving high streets are essential to local growth. But in cities like mine, people are increasingly concerned by the uncontrolled growth of betting shops and vape stores. Research shows this concern is not isolated. Nearly half of betting shops and gambling stores are in the 20% of places which are struggling the most, like Peterborough. So can I ask the Prime Minister, will he ask his departments to meet with me and campaigners so we can discuss ways that local communities like mine can take back control of our high streets?
Fantastic. Ban advertising for gambling.
Champion for his
Ban it. It is ridiculous.
And we are committed to supporting our nation's high streets to adapt and thrive. Planning applications are required for any new betting office to make sure locals have a say on individual cases. And communities can use the planning system to allow for a change of use of their properties. And I will make sure that he gets the meeting that is asked for.
Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, the EFRA Select Committee published its report on the Government's vision for agriculture. The committee agrees with the Government that land purchase being used to shelter wealth from inheritance tax is a problem that needs to be tackled. As a cross-party committee with a government majority, however, we took the unanimous view that the government's current proposals for inheritance tax reform will catch too many family farms who will simply not be able to pay the bill. We are asking for the changes to be paused and reworked. Will the Prime Minister listen to the Select Committee and those on his own benches who want to tackle tax evasion and support the farmers who keep producing food for the nation's table?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he knows the very limited impact of the inheritance tax only on farmers of very high.
It's about 500 people. There's hardly anyone who's had to pay it.
Money we put in at the budget into
you have to pay it once a lifetime.
Of course, the measures taken yesterday with the EU deal, which will massively help farmers selling their products into the EU market.
Julia Butley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Wrexham, Shropshire and Midlands Railway is on track to link North Wales and my Shrewsbury constituency directly to London with 5 trains daily, strengthening cross-border travel and fuelling this
How about a train line from North Wales to South Wales?
With 15 members from constituencies along the route already on board, will the Prime Minister support our journey and urge the Office for Rail and Road to give WSMR's open access application the green signal?
Mr. Speaker, our plan for change will see the railways reformed to deliver more reliable and better value services for passengers right across the country. My honourable friend has been a champion for better railways and easier journeys for her constituents. Open access operators have huge potential to offer passengers more choice. I'd be delighted to make sure that she and other interested MPs meet with the Rail Minister to put their case forward.
Dr. Neil Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think I'm right in saying that the Prime Minister might be a lawyer, trained to review evidence and reach judgment. So when he looks at the effects of his decisions, cutting the winter fuel payment, making pensioners poorer, damaging businesses with the jobs tax, decimating rural communities with the family farm tax, and risking our food security by selling off our fishing waters, surely he can review the evidence and see the verdict. Will the Prime Minister now throw these damaging policies out of his court once and for all before they do any more harm?
He went to Chigwell School.
Growth is the highest in the G7.
Independent boarding and day school.
Rates in a row, and trade deals with countries across the world who want to do deals with this country because they can see the stability that this government has brought about. Instability with them, stability and growth with this Labour government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is National Epilepsy Week, and we're joined in the gallery by England rugby player Tommy Freeman, who was diagnosed with epilepsy at 19. But through effective treatment has gone on to be selected for the British and Irish Lions, and I hope the Prime Minister will join me in congratulating him on that great achievement. But for a third of epilepsy sufferers, seizures cannot be controlled by medication, like my constituent Ben Lacey, who suffers multiple seizures every single day. Ben will never be able to work, yet has been subject to stress and uncertainty of multiple PIP reassessments. So will the Prime Minister reaffirm his commitment to ensuring that people like Ben with lifelong conditions who cannot work will be protected from these damaging reassessments and given the support they need to live with dignity?
Can I begin by congratulating Tommy and everyone selected to represent the British and Irish Lions? It's an incredible achievement, and we'll be cheering them on. Mr. Speaker, it's important that we do protect those with severe disabilities or lifelong health conditions who can't work, paying them a premium and stopping those reassessments, which is part of the reform that we're bringing about. Ultimately, we also do need to get back to face-to-face assessments by trained assessors and health professionals, which fell to only 1 in 10 assessments under the last government.
The Ands.
Oh, God, no. It's 50p. 30p, Lee. Go on, 30p.
Mr. Speaker, keeps telling backbenchers, those over there, that he's deported 24,000 people from this country since he came into power. But he won't say who these people are. Now, it's my guess that they are people that came on work visas, students, and they are simply overstayers. But I'm willing, Mr. Speaker, to be proved wrong if you can answer one simple question. How many of these people that he's deported or failed asylum seekers that's come on small boats or on the back of lorries?
Come on, small boat, small boat. Go up and drop.
We've removed over 24,000 people. That's the highest record for nearly 10 years. We're taking other measures to get back control of our borders, including the Borders Bill, which gives our law enforcement enhanced powers, including terrorism-like powers. What did his party do? What did he do? He voted against them. And I'll tell you why he voted against them. Because they don't want to fix this problem, because it benefits them. It benefits them not to fix it. Party before country. It's very good he's standing in for the member for Clacton, I have to say. There was no sign of him yesterday at the EU. So he was the first through the E-gates somewhere south of France.
First through the E-gates. Oh, the House likes that.
Work if you can get it.
You're made to look like a twat. Very good, Keir. That was a good response for a change.
I welcome the government's investment of £680 million into mental health support. Meanwhile, in Scotland, many children in my constituency of Bathgate and Linlithgow are stuck on an NHS Lothian neurodevelopmental waiting list, which was only recently seeing patients referred in March 2022. This delay can lead to poor mental health, with children ending up on a CAMHS waiting list too. How will the Prime Minister work with devolved governments to ensure faster diagnosis and greater support so that no child across these aisles grows up on a waiting list?
Well, I thank you for her question. She rightly raises the broken promises of the SNP on mental health services powerfully. It is important, and we will have positive discussion with devolved governments to work on addressing mental health waiting times. But look, the SNP promised to invest in frontline mental health services, then cut them by £54 million in real terms this year. Now, with a record settlement in the budget, 2 decades in power, the SNP are out of excuses and out of ideas, and Scotland deserves better than that.
If the Prime Minister agrees that the Israeli government starving children to death is monstrous, why does he think it's OK for the UK to continue to sell Israel the equipment for the fighter jets to drop bombs on these starving children?
Yes, true. Although fighter jets don't drop bombs.
What we contribute into a pot is parts for fighter jets. And if we were to stop that, they couldn't be used by other countries in the other conflicts, including those in which we are involved. It doesn't know the detail at all. They're not sold directly. They go into a pot. If we were to stop that, they wouldn't then be available to others around the world who desperately need them in the conflicts they're engaged in. And that's why we won't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Dementia Gateway, my constituency of Stourbridge, was recently at risk of closure following...
So I just want to re-emphasise, that was a bad question. Not because the intent was bad. The intent was good. But why she settled on fighter jets, they were a very, very bad example to use. There's other equipment that we sell directly to Israel. It's not a component of something bigger. We sell it directly to Israel, and we should stop damn well selling that today, tomorrow. Not tomorrow, sorry, today. In the next hour, we should stop selling that immediately, and any consignments that are on the way should be turned back here.
£42 million worth of budget cuts by the Conservative-run Dudley Council. The Gateway is a vital service for dementia patients and their carers, providing daytime activities, advice and support from trained advisors, and following a well-fought campaign with cross-party support. The Dementia Gateway has been saved. So this Dementia Action Week,
Dave W,
Prime
yeah,
Minister join
right to
me
Rome.
in congratulating Lisa and the campaigners. And does he agree with me that services like the Dementia Gateway in Stourbridge are essential and support the government's mission to provide quality care in our communities close to home?
Yeah. Well, can I thank my honourable friend and celebrate
Pagan,
Lisa and all those who say it's an
infuriating.
important source of local support. The party opposite left local councils on the brink, unable to provide these vital services, letting down patients across the country. We are committed to improving dementia care through our Plan for Change, which is why we provided £69 billion boost for local government, invested £26 billion in the NHS, and made £3.7 billion available for social care, including an £880 million increase in the social care grant.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister agree that imprisoning Lucy Connolly, a young mother with a 12-year-old
broken his
daughter,
glasses
for one foolish social media post,
is
clearly not an efficient or fair use of prison.
It is. Absolutely it is. It's the independent judiciary, mate. Independent judiciary.
Sentencing is a matter for our courts.
Yes.
And I celebrate the fact that we have independent courts in this country. I am strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very long time, and we protect it fiercely. But I'm equally against incitement to violence against other people.
Yes.
And I will always support the action taken by our police and courts to keep our streets and people safe.
Yep.
Paul Foster.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I recently visited St Catherine's Hospice in Lostock Hall, which serves wonderfully my constituents of South Ribble, those of Ribble Valley and some of your constituents of Chorley, Mr Speaker. I discovered, speaking to them, that they have to pay in excess of £350,000 a year for medication, and it can only be sourced from the private sector, not the NHS. Doing some investigating, I found there's an ICB postcode lottery out there. Some ICBs fully fund and supply our medication, some subsidise, some don't supply it at all. There's also a disparity where evidence supports that hospices in the more deprived areas aren't funded, those in the more affluent areas are funded. Would the Prime Minister please speak with the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care as a matter of urgency and get free medication supplied by all ICBs to all hospices across the country?
Well, Mr Speaker, we have put record amounts into the NHS in the budget, and we're beginning to see the results of that. I accept the point he makes, and we will look again to make sure the money is properly used in the most efficient way.
We're Hobhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A month ago, I was denied entry into Hong Kong on a private visit. At the absence of any explanation, this seems to hint at a hidden blacklist aimed to silence any MP who speaks up against human rights abuses from the Chinese government. Many of us from any political party. Does he agree with me
Same with Israel.
that this is an attack on all of us?
Yes.
And will he personally seek reassurances from the Hong Kong authorities that no British parliamentarian will be denied entry in this way again?
Well, can I thank her? Her experience is deeply concerning, and I know it must have affected her. I think she was hoping to see and later saw her grandchild, but it must have impacted on her, and it is deeply concerning. We need to recognise that. Ministers have raised it, including the Foreign Secretary, on numerous occasions with their counterparts both in China and Hong Kong, preventing UK citizens, including members of Parliament, from entering Hong Kong without justification, or for simply expressing their views, is completely unacceptable, and it will only undermine Hong Kong's international reputation and the relationship that we have with them. And so we will continue to raise it.
John MacDonald.
Mr Speaker, you will know that I've raised on several occasions in the House the case of Alaa Abdel Fattah, the British-Egyptian human rights campaigner, who for several years now, many years now, has been imprisoned in Egypt, and whose mother, Layla, went on a 100-day hunger strike. I want to thank the Prime Minister for fulfilling his promise to contact the President Sisi of Egypt to secure Alaa's release, but unfortunately months on now, and Alaa remains in prison, and Layla this week has started her hunger strike again. Could I appeal to him to speak directly again to President Sisi to secure Alaa's release?
Well, can I thank him for raising this, not just today, but on the many occasions that he has. It is incredibly important that we do everything we can in this case. I have met Layla and given her my commitment to do everything I possibly can. I have had a number of contacts myself, but I'm not going to stop doing everything within my power to secure release.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Would the Prime Minister join me in welcoming my constituent Teddy, who is 6 years old, and with his mum Laura, who have come to see us today at Prime Minister's Questions. Teddy is a self-professed eco-warrior on a mission to change the world. He started out by saving thousands of plastic chocolate and sweet tubs from landfill because they're not currently recyclable. Will the Prime Minister commit to ask his Minister for Local Government to meet with Teddy and myself to discuss how we make these tubs recyclable? And does he agree with me that no matter how small you are never too little to make a big difference?
Just like Frodo Baggins.
Teddy on my behalf and on behalf, I think, of the whole House. It is really incredible that Teddy has done so much already and is in the gallery somewhere.
There's a kid up in the gallery.
Many of us struggle for a whole lifetime to make an impact on government policy. Teddy is already age 6 having an impact, and I'll make sure that he gets to speak to the relevant minister.
Well done, Teddy. Big thumbs up for Teddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last question.
Following on from my honourable friend, I also want to mark that this
Thanks,
week
Alistair
is
Kern.
National
It's very kind
Epilepsy
of you.
Week, an important opportunity to raise awareness of a condition that affects so many but often remains invisible.
Yeah.
Epilepsy comes with fear and uncertainty, the anxiety of having a seizure, the impact of losing a driving licence, and the worry about medication shortages.
Yeah.
In the UK, 1 in 100 people live with epilepsy. That's up to 6 of us in this chamber, including myself. So today I ask the Prime Minister, will he join me and the inspiring campaigners watching from the gallery in marking National Epilepsy Week as we continue to raise awareness of seizures?
Well, can I congratulate my honourable friend for her tireless campaigning on this issue and those campaigners who are with us today. I know the impact epilepsy has on people across the country, including on over 100,000 children and young people. We are committed to improving care for people with neurological conditions and setting up UK-wide Neuro Forum to improve treatment and care for those with such conditions.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Point of order.
Oh, there's a point of order. Wait. Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order, Richard Tice.
Oh, piss off!
Can I put on record
Rob,
of the House with your permission the sad passing yesterday of Patrick O'Flynn, a journalist, a political journalist, well known to many honourable members of this House. He died after...
Okay, yeah, that's not a point of order. He wants to mention someone who's died. Okay, there's a time and place for it. I don't think this is the time. Certainly don't think this is the place, but whatever. You know, he wants to chunder on. He wants to chunder from a seating position. Oh no, oh God, God. Everyone's like, no, make it stop. Make the bad man go away. But yeah, we made him go away, don't worry. I mean, I don't know who he's talking about, a lobby journalist who died. And that, you know, that's sad. That's sad. You know, I wouldn't wish death on anyone, but I don't see why it was relevant, why he had to hold up the entire House from leaving at the end of PMQs, you know, to go and do their jobs. You know, they've got work to do. Probably actually going to one of the 17 or is it 27 bars in the Palace of Westminster. Yeah, well, off to the bar, Westminster Bar. He decided to hold them all up because he wanted to make a point of order about the fact that someone had died. Anyway, so big thank you to Alistair Kerr. That is very kind of you. He has gifted 5 Politics Social gift memberships. So welcome to the channel. We have got Tokyo Joe, who received a gift. We've got Ruth Guthrie, who's been around for ages. So Ruth, you're finally a member. This is exciting. It's exciting stuff. We've also got Soze Lisblitz 21 Hogwarts fan is now a member, and so is Bad Books and Brad. You are all now members of the channel. Remember, you're a member of the channel, which is always worth remembering. And I just want to say to all of you, welcome. You are awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. More people. Fushim Shook is saying, what's he saying? He was bringing up a point of order about the fact that he wants to draw the House's attention to the fact that a journalist had died. I don't think it was a terrorist attack or anything. I don't know. I just, whatever. So, what did you think? What did you think of PMQs? I thought that Kemi Badenoch was just appalling. Like, I know I stopped it to point this out, but it's worth reiterating. She asked the same question as Ed Davey, the exact same question, which was, are you going to U-turn on the winter fuel payment? Only he put it in a way that Starmer could kind of answer without getting his back up, without admitting that he's fucked up, because no one likes admitting they're fucked up. Do you like admitting you're fucked up? I don't like admitting I'm fucked up. I mean, I do have an animation that says, I was wrong and I accept responsibility, But I don't usually have to use it, and I don't want to use it unless I absolutely have to. And so, addressing the question in an aggressive manner of going, you were wrong, weren't you? Just admit it to everyone that you were wrong. It's like so childish and so beneath the dignity of the British, what should be the British parliamentary system. I'm just embarrassed, and this is the way that the Tories want to conduct things. Now, if you look at parliaments around the world, most of them don't behave like this, and it's easy to see why. Nothing gets done. Nothing gets done if it's just one person screaming at another. What a knobhead they are. You know, admit you messed up. Come on, admit it. Whereas doing the whole, we welcome the Prime Minister's words this morning this afternoon on what he wants to do, what his party wants to do about the situation with the winter fuel allowance. Would the Prime Minister care to elaborate on that and give us a straight answer if we're going to see the winter fuel allowance being put back in place as it was? That's a better way of framing that question, because it allows the Prime Minister to go, okay, fucked up, but in a way that if you go in all guns blazing and say, you messed up, it's a U-turn, isn't it? Yes, it is a U-turn. But there is diplomacy and politics that needs to be used in politics to get the answer that you want. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter the way that the Prime Minister responds to this question, really. Whether, he shuts it down completely, or if he gives a half answer to it, which is what he did to Ed Davey. The newspapers are going to publish that it's a U-turn anyway. They're going to go, well, there's going to be a U-turn, there's going to be a U-turn. Fine. Leave that to the tabloids. Leave that to the gutter press, to the Gammon Box News, live TV bullshit of the world. In Parliament, structure it in a way that you get a half-decent answer. I know you're not going to get a straight answer from a politician, blah, 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 but at least you get a half-decent answer, because you're not asking questions on behalf of your party. And this is what Kemi Badenoch doesn't understand. This is what, Farage or whatever, those gobshites don't understand. They're asking questions on behalf of the British people. They're asking questions on behalf of their constituents. And this is why Labour MPs are allowed to ask questions too. It's not just slag off the Prime Minister 45 minutes. That's not what it's called. It's called Prime Minister's Questions. And so, having watched hundreds of these now, it's really clear that the Tories don't want to take it seriously. They see it as an excuse to score political points rather than to get genuine questions gleaned from the government about what they plan to do. And also, when it is an excuse for the Prime Minister to crow about their achievements, what I found a bit weird was there's an incredible news story today, which is I'm gonna put the link into the chat here so you can check it out for yourself. Okay, this is from the government's website. This is actually on gov.uk, right? So this isn't just in a newspaper. It's a press release. It's a record 81 criminal investigations which have been launched into water companies that have broken the law under the largest crackdown in history against water companies. The number of inspections carried out by authorities into sewage pollution has skyrocketed by 400% since last July when Labour got in. This is an incredibly popular, right, a bit of policy. This is an incredibly popular policy amongst people from all political stripes. The polling data on this shows that going after the greedy, corrupt water companies is like the number one priority, right? And there's two things here. First of all, obviously, a little bit of, brownie points for Labour. But secondly, people need to know this. People need to know that the government is going after these bloody water companies Because there was another story on the front page of one of the newspapers today. It was buried on the very bottom of the page, but it did say that those water company bosses at Thames Water, who have just been given a £3 billion loan bailout, these people who, the water companies in the UK in the last 30 years have paid out billions in dividends to shareholders. Billions with a B. And yet they haven't built a single reservoir. In fact, they closed down 5 reservoirs, filled them in or whatever they do with them. They haven't opened a single reservoir, and we're going to see the effects of that this summer in real time. Alistair, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's very kind of you. Graham, just getting so tired of the SNP government, bad all the time when Labour are following the cuts to the Scottish government budget. The Tories planned, but I am biased, 15% cuts in 5 years. Yeah, I really do. I cringe when I know why they're doing it. But when Labour have a pop at the SNP about how Scotland's being run, when, yeah, you're right, comparing it with how Britain, the whole of Britain was run, the whole of the UK was run under the Tories, I mean, far and away, the SNP have been better in almost every measurable metric, right? So like that I find a little bit, but I also felt that way, and you can go back and watch some old PMQs, the commentary by me, where as much as I liked Blackford, and then much as I liked Stephen Flynn, Stephen Flynn in particular wouldn't just have a go at the Tories. He would have a go at Labour as well, who at the time weren't in power in Scotland or in Westminster. So it felt to me a little bit party political to use Prime Minister's questions, instead of using it as an excuse to have a go at the Tories, which is fair enough, that's their job. He would also use it as an excuse to have a go at Labour, who are obviously nipping at the heels of the SNP in terms of Westminster parliamentary elections, which we all knew were coming up, the general election of last year. So yeah, I get that, but you're always going to have a little bit of the whole Punch and Judy thing. My point is that if you want to get a decent answer about the Prime Minister, any Prime Minister, ask them a decent question. And so I'll go to that question that was asked about supplying arms to Israel, because that was a really, really important question. And it breaks my heart that wasn't brought up much more in that debate, by the way. It was hardly brought up at all. What is happening in Gaza is an absolute genocide. There were 12,000 babies who are at risk of death in the next 12 to 24 hours. That's how bad things are right now. And there was one question asked, but she mentioned fighter jets, bombing stuff. And instantly my annoying, pedantic self kicks in and go, well, actually, fighter jets fight against other planes. Bombers bomb people. They're a different type of plane entirely. And that's true. And that's a shit thing for my brain to think of. But it's exactly what the other side thought as well. They thought, okay, we can get out of this difficult question on a technicality. And yes, with fighter jets, we do make components for fighter jets. And if we stop making those components, our allies will not get the fighter jets that they've paid for. And I understand that. But at the same time, there's 250 other fucking things that we sell to the Israelis that we could stop tomorrow. There are things that we sell direct to Israel that are made by arms manufacturers in this country that we could stop tomorrow. And one of the most disturbing factual nuggets that you might want to take from all this is this. Under the Tory governments of the 1980s and 1990s, they allowed so many parts of British industry to go under, to fall apart. And they did not prop them up at all. They gave them no government assistance whatsoever. In fact, we were part of pacts with other countries in the EU, but also via the WTO, that said we will not give government assistance to various companies, private enterprises, in order to, fulfill their books. So I'll give you an example. Camel Laird Shipyard in Liverpool, which is still going now, but that looked like that went into administration. It looked like it was on its last legs because it had made the middle section for an Italian cruise ship, and then the Italian company that wanted it turned around and said, no, we don't want it anymore. And they're like, but we've built it. We've spent all this money, and now we've got the middle of a ship. What do we do? Because we've got to cut the ship in half and extend it and put the middle in the ship, right? Because ships are like Lego. And they did go. They went into administration. Obviously, they've been saved, and Camel Laird are still making boats to this day. They made the RMS to David Attenborough, which is the ship with Boaty McBoatface, the submarine on it. But the government didn't step in to help in that case, and most of the time, the government will not step in to help industry or businesses. Not because they don't want to necessarily. If it's a left-wing government, I don't see why they wouldn't want to do that, but because they're stopped from state intervention by various conventions that we've signed, like I say, not just with the EU when we were a member of it, but with other trade conventions around the world, most notably the WTO, most favoured nation, and there's also a group of 46 or 47 countries that say we are going to give the same allowance when it comes to tenders going out for a big government project. A British company, for instance, would be given the same consideration as an American company or a Moldovan company or whoever's on the list, right? Except arms manufacturers. They get an exception to this. Internationally, they get an exception to this rule. And so, if the Kingdom of Jordan decides to buy, 47 tanks off us, and we make 47 tanks, and we send them over to Jordan, and they're like, thank you very much, here's the money for 37 tanks, and we say, no, 47. We made 47. Oh yeah, but we only want 37. So, the British government, i.e. the taxpayer, pays for the 10 tanks that didn't get paid for by the Kingdom of Jordan. We step in and fill that gap. We do that. And that's something I feel that needs to change. I really do, but I don't see, if you can explain to me how they can get around this without bankrupting weapons companies. But I think that there is a certain amount of this where countries know that they can renege on agreements and they'll still get the kit, and the arms company will still get paid. So happy days. We pick up the tab. So we were picking up the tab in the 1990s when Indonesia was buying arms off us to use against the people of East Timor, or Timor-Leste. Not great. Anyway, Diz says, I feel you, Graham. Ooh, naughty. We've got Trip saying, what about stopping new Israeli contracts with the US regarding businesses and imports? Yep, that's another thing they could definitely do. Flynn is just pointing out how some Scottish people feel angry at Westminster, my friend. Yeah, I like Stephen Flynn. I think he's a really good speaker. He's engaging. He's got that angry Scottish vibe that I really enjoy. But the way Labour now have a dig at the SNP at every opportunity is because the SNP are in government in Scotland. When the Scottish elections come up, obviously Labour want to make inroads there, like they've already done in Westminster. So, Grimfang says, Starmer specifically said more pensioners will get WFA. It's not a reversal, it's an adjustment. Yes. They really need to adjust it up to like 20 grand or something like that. If you're earning less than 20 grand, you get it. It's only a few £100. I know that sounds like really flippant, and I know that over millions of people, it adds up to a lot of money. But in the greater scheme of things, this is one of those decisions made about an economy that actually you're better off just letting it go, because then you deprive the opposition of a rod to beat you with, for the rest of time. Nick and Diff, Labour, are you turning on work from? I keep wanting to say work from home. Winter fuel allowance. WFH is work from home. If Labour are U-turning on WFA, then there's hope for other cuts too. Although I think they should have started with the more damaging cuts first. Don't have much sympathy for pensioners who can afford it. Yeah, I mean, people who are on the state pension who don't even live in this country anymore were somehow eligible for this winter fuel allowance, even though they live in a country where there is no winter, and the millionaires seemed a bit mad to me. This is David Attenborough, research boat lol, boating with boat face. That's the one. Pollinator. What I prefer is Westminster to become the Parliament for England and have a separate house for issues which cover the Union as a whole, giving more devolution. Yeah, the idea that was put forward by oh god, I've forgotten his name now. He wrote The State We're In. Will, can't remember his name. His idea was for there to be a House of Britain. So we have the House of Commons, which becomes an English chamber, and then we have a House of Britain, which I think acts as a upper chamber for the whole country, for things that aren't devolved or something like that. I can't remember. Will Hutton, his name is. But yeah, a federal system, something like that, I think is really required. I still smart at the fact that Scotland and Northern Ireland were dragged out of the EU against their will. I think that is so disgraceful. That is so disgraceful. It was supposed to be a union of equals, and yet England and Wales can gang up on the other two. I just think it's wrong. Hutton, says Diz. Yes, it was. Pedantic brain. Yes, I do. I think if you earn less than £20,000 a year, you should be entitled to the winter fuel allowance regardless of age. It's a very good point, Tommy. It's a very good point. That's a really small amount. Not for me, but for most people, that's not barely enough to live on. And also, one of the things that REFUC always keep going on about is the fact that you won't have to pay income tax up to the first 20,000 that you earn. And I kind of agree with that. But the way it would have to be done, because I can see what they're doing, they're thinking, oh, so if you're a director of a company, then you give yourself 20 grand of wages, so you don't pay any tax on it. And then you just take dividends, and you just take dividends, and that's how you pay yourself, and that's how you can avoid tax. So if we're going to do that, we need to find a way of getting around, well, changing the tax system so that dividends and capital gains tax are taxed correctly at the same levels or even more higher tax than on income tax. Income tax, I think, is a very unfair tax because people who work get taxed at quite a high rate, whereas people who make more money in their sleep because of their investments don't pay as much tax on it as a proportion, which I just think is ridiculous. Our world is still beautiful, Badgers. I know. Well, Angry Pagan. Couldn't agree more. And it's a lovely day today in most places. I believe it's raining somewhere down south, but here up in Durham, it is a lovely day. So I'm going to get going now. I will suggest, if you fancy it, leave the house, have a walk, touch some grass, as they say, smoke some grass if that's your poison, and enjoy the rest of the day. I might do a show later on tonight with Rachel, so look out for that. Otherwise, I will be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with Morning Brew. So I hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed all the shit today, all the streaming, and until next time, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for watching. And hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.